Hi, everyone. Dorothea Hendriks here, your coach in presentation skills and public speaking. I am honored. I'm honored today to have as my guest, Iman Aghay. Iman Aghay is a serial entrepreneur, international speaker, 9-time #1 best-selling author, and early investor in over 100 tech companies, tech and medical companies. He's best known as the co-founder of Actionera, a platform that assists experts in building mobile apps to enhance their income and impact. Iman's developed over 150 online courses for coaches, authors, speakers, and program leaders, and he's presented on over a thousand live and virtual stages. Iman's TEDx talk, How to Live a Life with No Regrets, is probably one of the world's top-rated speeches. Iman impacts entrepreneurs, helping them build their businesses aligned with their life's purpose. And isn't that what every business owner is looking to do? As the leader's mentor, Iman serves his clients and community with excellence and integrity. Iman has a vision, and that is to have a massive positive impact on over 100 million people. That's quite a vision. And it's that fuels his love and his passion for guiding entrepreneurs. Welcome, Iman.
Thank you very much, Dorothea, for such a great introduction. I should take you with me everywhere. And I say, Dorothea, can you introduce me?
Hey, every word is true. Every word is true. I've taken some of your workshops and kind of popped in and out of your life from time to time, and it's all true. It's all true. I have a number of questions for you, and the very first one here, and some people may know this, but you arrived in Canada from Iran in 2009 with no job, no prospects, and limited English. What was the pivotal moment for you when you decided or you discovered your passion for helping entrepreneurs?
Ah, actually, it's a very long story and at the same time, quite short one. Um, I, I, as I was a new immigrant, I was looking for jobs. I wasn't able to find a job. My wife at the time and I almost became homeless. We were 17 days away from becoming homeless when we decided to start our business. I started the business and built this web design company to a good financial place. And when I thought I financially made it or I'm comfortable, I woke up one morning and I realized I'm bleeding internally. And I was rushed to the hospital where doctors realized that I lost 60% of my blood. And in a matter of a day, I found myself on my deathbed. Usually, when you lose 25% of your blood, you are at a massive risk of getting a deadly heart attack. And I lost 60%. And to stop my bleeding, they needed to perform a surgery on me, but they couldn't because I lost 60% of my blood. And they couldn't even open me up because I didn't have enough blood to survive the surgery. So they could connect me to blood transfusion and saying, hopefully the blood we're giving you is faster than the blood that you're losing.
Mm.
And we'll see you tomorrow morning, hopefully. And if you are there, then we'll talk and we'll just do the surgery or whatever needs to be done. So I ended up on my deathbed connected to blood transfusion, 5 bags of them, one by one, hours.
Mm.
And as I was going through that experience, I started thinking about what I made of my life. I realized tomorrow is my funeral and people are going to come to my funeral. And what are they going to say about the life that I made for myself? And then I realized they're going to come to my funeral saying, Iman was a nice guy. He was a web designer. And I freaking hated that. Well, for multiple reasons. Number one, I am such a bad designer. Like I was not born to be a designer. And I mean, I knew everything about online marketing, but the design part was not definitely my forte. And I was never meant to be a designer. Number two, I realized I came to this world to make a difference. And to that point of my life, I was alive, but I never lived. I never lived true to my heart. I never lived true to my passion. I never lived true to my purpose. And this was 10 days before my 27th birthday. I wasn't even 27 at that point. And I was like, huh, I got 20, almost 27 years on this planet, and I wasted it. And, but what happens if I get a second chance? What happens if this blood transfusion works? What happens if they can save me? What would I change? What do I want? And even what does it mean living true to my heart? Like, what does my heart want? And I didn't know the answer. I didn't know the answer is like, what is it? Like, what is it that I'm looking for? And so I got lucky. My bleeding stopped out of its own. And after 5 bags of blood transfusion, um, they were like, well, you have enough blood that you're only at massive risk of heart attack, but nothing but that. I'm like, okay, well, that I can live with, coming from almost like me, like, sure, that I can deal with really right now. But anyways, I I was released from the hospital the night before my 27th birthday. They kept me at hospital for 10 days. They did all different type of exams and tests and scans and everything they could, and they couldn't find a thing. And so they released me from the hospital the night before my 27th birthday, um, and that was the biggest birthday gift I've ever received in my life, the rest of my life. It was like, huh, we allowed you to waste the first 27 years. Now you know the value of every single day. Go out there and live true to your heart. And I was like, well, okay, well, let's go on a self-discovery journey, even know what it is that I want to do. And after about a couple of years of personal development work, doing many different type of things, I realized that my passion is to make a difference in people's lives, when you tell people something that they get this aha moment and then you see that shine in their eyes. My passion is seeing that shine in people's eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, how can I see that every day? How can I help people to get to that transformational moment that it changes their lives? And I can get to see that because that's what I want to see every day of my life. So people say, Mom, why do you teach so many classes, events, conferences? Why do you do everything live? Well, because I want to see it. I want to feel the impact. I want to see the change. I want to experience it. People say, Iman, why do you spend like from 6 a.m. sometime to midnight when you are on a cruise with people? Or, because we go on cruises like business cruises, everything else, right? So I'm the first one out there and hang out with people, and I'm the last one going back to bed. And people say, um, like, what is it about it? Well, it's my passion. I'm living it every day. I'm enjoying it every single second. And I love the fact that it is changing people's lives and experiencing that, and that's just what I want. And a few months after I found that passion, I said I want to make a difference in the lives of 100 million people before I die. And I know that I can't do that alone. So I start working with people to help them to make that difference in other people's lives, because I can create a ripple effect of impact, right? I can help 10,000 people that each of them make a difference in the lives of 10,000 clients each, 10,000 people each. And that changes the lives of 100 million people. I don't need people to know that I was the one who made the difference in their lives. But I want to know next time if I'm on my deathbed that I lived my life true to my heart and true to my purpose and made something of it.
That's a beautiful story. I've heard, I've heard you tell that story before, and I always find it very moving because sometimes that's what it takes for some of us. We have to hit the wall and face the fact that we might not be here, and then let's make a difference in our lives. Let's do something because we haven't done something before. And I love the fact that you say you love the shine in people's eyes. I know when I've attended your workshops that you do put a shine in people's eyes, and people get really excited and enthusiastic. And one of the things that I find you speaking often about, and you just finished telling your story, but you talk about the importance of finding, for entrepreneurs, for speakers to find their story, find their why. Like you found your why. And so you talk about this. Can you elaborate a bit more on that, on the how speakers, how entrepreneurs, why they need to find their why and how they can do it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, knowing your why, knowing your passion, knowing your purpose, plays significant role in your business as an entrepreneur. I have seen so many people who have a $5 million business, $500,000 business, $2 million business, 10 million, $15 million business. I recently worked with a person who was a billionaire, and they get to a point of their life that they look back and the money didn't mean a thing at that point to them anymore. And then they get to this place is like, but okay, I built this business, I made this money, but did I live true to my heart? And knowing that as an entrepreneur, you get this opportunity to build something that is aligned with your purpose every single day, and not taking action on it is a big mistake. Big mistake. But that's just one side of it. Also, when you are in the market, when you are in the business, when you are doing what you're passionate about, people that want to work with you want to know that you're passionate about the work that you do with them. And the way that they know that is through your story, through your why. I always say you can have 3 whys stories, like 3 why stories. Why for your topic, why for your target market, and why for your system. And you gotta know at least one of these whys. The story, that why you're passionate about your topic. You're teaching people book writing, you're teaching people about public speaking, you're teaching people about, I don't know, course creation, you're teaching people about anything. Why? Why that topic? What made you passionate about that topic? Why should I work with you over everybody else that are doing it? Because there are just so many other people that are doing everything that we do. But why you, right? So that's why for that topic. The second thing is why for the target market. Sometimes we don't know why for our topic, but we know the target market. Like some people say, I like to work with seniors, but why? What is it about seniors? I love to work with teenagers. Sure. Well, what is it about teenagers? Why are you passionate? I like to work with entrepreneurs. Why? Why do I love to work with entrepreneurs? Right? The why story connects you to the people that are in that target market or are interested in that topic. Or why for your system? If you have created a system, if you have a methodology, why that methodology? If you're a chiropractor, but you do network chiropractic. Okay, why? Why network chiropractic? Why not NUCA? Why not all the other types of chiropractic? Why that methodology? So there is the why story, whether topic, target market, or the methodology, or all of them combined, actually, because sometimes you tell a story and that why is like connected, like that story connects everything. But you need to at least have one of your whys, and that why attracts the right group of people to you. And sometimes telling the wrong story attracts wrong people to you. So over years, of course, we have created a lot of stories. I tell a lot of stories and everything else, and we test the stories. We test the stories that were told and the type of clients we attracted. And some of the stories that I use in webinars, I used in certain webinars, I stopped using them because as a result of that story, regardless of everything, so everything else in the webinar was the same, but the story attracted the wrong type of clients to us. So I adjusted the story. I was like, okay, well, let's tell another story. So because that story is attracting the wrong type of clients to us. Story connects the client, like story is what gets you the client. Okay, let's put it this way. In a 1 hour webinar, or in a 1 hour signature talk, in a 1 hour talk, the majority of the clients decide to work with you in the first 10 minutes. The rest of the 50 minutes, those who chose to work with you are hoping what you are going to teach and your offer matches what they need. But they mentally, subconsciously choose to work with you within the first 10 minutes. And then the rest of it, they're just seeing if you are a good match based on your systems and based on your price and based on the package with what they need. What happens in the first 10 minutes? The first 10 minutes, you're telling your story. They mentally choose to work with you because of your story. And the rest of the presentation is just making sure that the ones who chose to work with you are aligned with the package, price, and everything else. Now, that story can also frame the customer's mind, meaning that it can put them in the frame of coming to you from a victim mindset, coming to you with a winner mindset, coming to you with a let's go get it mindset, come to you with they want to be saved mindset. You literally can impact your client's frame of mind by the type of the story that you tell and the type of customer that you attract. And so that so the story that you tell, what type of client is it attracting and how is it framing their mind of who you are going to be to them.
So you actually test, if I understand correctly, you test your stories?
Oh, absolutely. We test the story. The story is the story is probably 50% of the importance of the entire presentation, even though the story part is only less than 15% of the entire presentation. So if you don't get the story right, getting the rest of the presentation right is pretty hard. But if you get the story right, you can screw up quite a few number of things in the presentation and you would still be okay.
That's so interesting. I guess I lead a sheltered life. I didn't realize that people actually test stories. So, because I've heard you talk about the power of story, the incredible power of stories. And so right now, that first 10 minutes, that sets the stage, whether
Yeah.
people come with you, don't come with you, and if they come with you, in what way they come with you. So there's an incredible amount of power in the type of story you're going to be sharing.
And who you become to them.
Yes.
And who you become to them. That's very important. So when people are investing in a program, Well, I'm talking here sales because of the way that our conversation is going. The stories are actually far more important than just sales, but because in our conversation we're talking sales, I'm talking sales, and then we can talk about all the other aspects. But when it comes to sales, some people are looking for a disciplining dad in the programs that they buy. So sometimes clients think, I'm too wishy-washy. I'm looking for a person that can hold me accountable and take my hand. And so your story can show whether you're going to be that person to them. Another person is looking for a person that holds the space and make you feel seen and heard, which, by the way, that's a lot of people like that, so like almost everyone. But does your story convey that you are the person that holds the space and allow people to be seen and heard? So there is a part of one of my stories that I say, have you ever had a person who believed in you far more than you even believed in yourself? And people say no. And I say, that moment in that part of my life, my wife believed in me far more than I ever believed in myself. And that's why today in our company, we believe in our clients far more than they ever believe in themselves, because I experienced what that means. And I experienced the magic and the way that it changes people's lives. I continue my story, but that one moment, we call that an engagement point. That engagement point, a question from the audience, and then bringing it back again to the story where people are taking notes. So I would say, don't just tell a story. Tell a story with bringing people back to the conversation a few times. Otherwise, because sometimes I tell a very long story. Like sometimes I tell a 30-minute story. So if you're on a webinar and you're telling a 30-minute story without people taking notes, you're going to be very boring and people are going to leave. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that people are taking notes for themselves as you're telling your story. Actually, I did that a couple of months ago. I told a 1.5-hour story in a 3-day event. And at the end of the story, I told people, I asked them, I said, how many pages of notes do you have? And they had anywhere between 5 to 9 pages of notes. I was just telling a story, but the story was so relevant to them that they were just taking pages and pages and pages of notes on the mindset shifts, on the engagement points, on the questions, on the teaching points, all of those things as I was going through the story. Anyways, I went through a circle of saying everything and saying nothing all at the same time. But yes, the stories are incredibly powerful way of communication and building relationship. Can I add something here?
Yes, by
Okay,
all means, yes.
so here's the thing that a lot of people don't know. The mental trigger that positions you as the go-to expert is having the ability to explain the pain of the customer exactly the way that that customer feels the pain. Okay, so I'll say that again. Probably anybody who's listening wants to take notes on this, but the mental trigger that positions you as the go-to expert is having the ability to explain the pain of the customer exactly the way that they experience the pain. So I'll give you an example of this, and so that may make more sense. Imagine that you have a headache and you go to the doctor and you're sitting in the room. The doctor comes in and says, what's going on with you? And you say, I have a headache. The doctor writes you a note, gives you the prescription, walks out. And then you're like, what the hell just happened? Like, this doctor has no clue about anything, right? You're like, you feel not heard, you feel like not cared for. You're like, I am dealing with so many problems, and yet this is all you do? Like, no, right? So you want to go and get a second opinion. You want to get another doctor to actually talk to you and like listen to you and make sure that understands their issue. So you go to the second doctor. You go to the second doctor. The second doctor walks into the room and says, Dorothea, what's going on with you? And you are like, I'm having headache these days. The doctor says, do you feel your headache here in this section of your head? And you're like, yeah, absolutely. He says, I mean, you put your hand on it and like press your finger on the side and leave it. Does the pain go away for a few seconds? You're like, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And then it's like, I mean, you will walk up the stairs. You start having like some pumping sensation in the back of your neck. I mean, you massage the neck and you touch it. The pain disappears for a few seconds. You're like, yes, yes, that's exactly how I feel right now. And it's like, okay, great. Do you think this doctor knows how to solve your problem at this point? Well, majority of people say yes. Majority of people say, yeah, absolutely, like he knows exactly how I feel. Except that this doctor showed you absolutely zero sign that he knows how to fix it. He just told you how you feel. At this point, this doctor can get up and say, well, it was nice talking to you. I am experiencing the same pain. I don't know how to fix it. But the way that you positioned him as the go-to expert was his ability to explain your pain the way you were experiencing it. At this point, he can also write you a note and write you a prescription, and the prescription can actually help you with the headache to go away, which makes him the best doctor in the world for you. Except that you can look at this prescription and the previous prescription, they could be the exact same prescription. The first one didn't position himself as the go-to expert, just gave you his expertise.
Mhm.
The second one positioned himself as the go-to expert and gave you his expertise. So you become the fan of the second doctor and you don't want to go back to the first doctor. So this ability of explaining the pain of the customer exactly the way that they feel it is extremely important ability. But what does that have to do with stories? Well, how can you explain the pain of the customer exactly the way they feel it if you're in a room with 5 customers, or with 10, or with 100, or in front of 1,000? How do you do that? How do you position yourself as a go-to expert and explain their pain? Because you're not talking to one, you're talking to more than one, more than 2, 5, 10, 20, 100. You do that through your story. So in your story, when you go through the sequences of a story, and particularly when you get to talking about the pain and the challenges that you are experiencing, those challenges get the customer to relive their life through your story. So as you are telling your story, they're like, I felt that way. I was there. I've experienced that. So you are telling your story, but they are reliving their life through your story.
Mhm.
So now you have 100 people who you're explaining their pain exactly the way that they're experiencing it, but through your story. as a person who experienced it, as a person who lived it, as a person who went to the biggest fear, which is the crash and burn point of your story. And then you talk about the change and how you became an expert on the solution to that challenge.
I remember you talking about when you were talking about story and going back to when you asked people about making notes. I remember in one of your workshops, the exact thing happened to me. You went on with a story. And then I had, when I came home, I had these pages and pages and pages and pages of material, right? And I went like, wow, who knew, right? There was just so much to this, right? And so right now I'm thinking back to that, and you mentioned too that every story has to have a teaching point. And as you're doing this, as you're going through reliving and helping them in their own mind experience that, there are actually multiple teaching points, touch points taking place, which brings me to another question. And it is, we're talking here about personal stories. Often I've heard speakers, and I don't know whether this is the best move for them, where they are telling other people's stories instead of their own story. Whenever I've attended a workshop with you, generally speaking, you've told your own story, and they're powerful stories. Thinking of other people telling other people's stories sometimes makes me wonder, do they have a story, or have they searched for their own why in terms of their own story?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can actually tell other people's stories, but for a purpose, for a reason. So one of the stories that I always share is the story of my dad. It's not my story, it's my dad's story, and you have heard that.
Yes.
But you see that as my story, as opposed to my dad's story, even though it's my dad's story. The reason that that happens is because the way that I work the story. So you can tell other people's story, but for a purpose. And let me explain. So we talked about the three whys. Why for the topic, why for the target market, why for the methodology or the system. If you are telling this story as why for your target market, what makes you passionate about this target market, and the story that you are telling is related to why for you, but it involves somebody else around you, then you can tell that person's story on how it created your why for the target market. That's my dad's story that I share. And so that's the same story that I have in my TEDx. That's one of the stories. So I have in my TEDx talk, I have two stories. One is a longer story that I'm using as a glue to the entire talk. And one is a shorter story that I use for making my entire point in less than a minute. So the story that I'm using to tell my entire point in less than a minute is my dad's story. And so when you hear that story, and I say, seeing my dad's premature death shaped a passion in me to work with entrepreneurs to help them identify their life purpose, so they don't end up working hard every single day of their life and then finding themselves on their deathbed, realizing they never lived true to their heart. They never lived true to their purpose. You see, Dorothea, we have many stories that shape our passion. I didn't become passionate about teaching people about their life purpose just because I was on my deathbed. It was a combination of several experiences. One of them was seeing my dad passing away at 53 from ALS. And he was an entrepreneur. He was a very hardworking entrepreneur who planned to retire at 53. So yes, I ended up on my deathbed 10 days before my 27th birthday, and that gave me a second story. But before that, I also had my dad's story. Now, before that, I wasn't working on helping people to build business aligned with their life purpose. I wasn't. But early days when I started, I didn't even realize that that birthday, 27th birthday story was something that impacted me. I knew that seeing my dad's death impacted me. As I started telling that story, at one point, after a couple of years, I was like, wait a second, wait a second. My whole life turned around when I actually ended up on my deathbed. I didn't even notice it. So as I'm telling it today, it feels like everything was clear, but it wasn't as I was living it. And sometimes I tell people, when people feel that they have no story at all, is because their story is too painful that they don't even want to tell it to themselves. So they are covering it, their brain is covering it to protect them from the pain, because that's our brain's responsibility, keep us alive, helping us from the pain, saving us from the pain. Now, do all stories need to be painful? Absolutely not. You can have great, amazing stories that are all like related to great things, and they have a place for that story as well. Like what when you use when you use those stories. But generally, the biggest changes in our lives, the biggest aha moments, the biggest all of those things come from traumatic experiences. We get the biggest. So nobody in life says, "Oh, everything is great. Let me change everything." People usually get to a traumatic experience and change. So that's why the why stories are usually traumatic experiences, and so that's how we end up.
What are three tips you can give people to make a powerful story, to create powerful story? What are three things someone can do that would make their story powerful?
Number one, follow a structure of telling stories. So there is a difference between memory and stories. A lot of people share memories. They're not telling stories. The difference between memory and story is that the story has sequences. Sequence one, this happens. Sequence two, this happens. Sequence three, this happens. Memory is telling it the way that you remember it. But telling it the way that you remember it is just memory, it's just what you remember. So it's important that you follow sequences of a story. And there are 5 sequences. Is that okay if I share that?
Yes,
So,
please.
so there are five sequences to a story. The first sequence is building the common character. When the person is listening to you, they need to connect with that common character. They need to know who that common character is. Think about a Hollywood movie, and the very first few scenes that you watch is building the character of that person. It's a dad that comes down the stairs. The kids are there. They're like doing the dad things that they do, right? So you're like, okay, so that's a dad, right? So they build the common character. It's someone that you know. Then the common character experiences some pain. Pain is the second sequence. So they start having some challenges, they start having some problems. So it shows, like, for example, the dad sits on the bus, goes to the bus, like is looking for money, doesn't have the money to pay for the bus, like, I don't know, gets to work, doesn't have money to pay for it, right? Starts having pain. So you introduce the pains and the challenges, right? And the challenges build on top of each other. You add challenge over challenge over challenge over challenge over challenge. And then you get to sequence 3, which is crash and burn, which is the biggest fear that the customer has, which at that point you're like, okay, well, now that is where we're going to crash and burn. And then, and so the common character gets to this crash and burn. Everything burns down. Like for my story, when I said earlier, I end up on my deathbed. So that's the crash and burn. And then in the crash and burn, you go through an experience that we call it the change. So that's sequence 4, the change. So when you go back to the story I said earlier today, on my deathbed, I was thinking about what did I make of my life? How am I going to be remembered tomorrow? And what am I going to change, right? So that sequence is called the change sequence. And then step 5 is the thrive, or sequence 5 is thrive. So now that you make that change, now you get on thrive, which is, for example, the story I said was, now I'm in the path of making the difference in the lives of 100 million people, and seeing that shine in people's eyes and all of that. So common character, pain, crash and burn, change, and thrive. Always, you got to follow a sequence. This is the basic sequence. This is the foundational sequence. There are a little bit more advanced sequences that you can use, but this foundational sequence that I just talked about is a billion-dollar industry called Hollywood. So if you watch any Hollywood movie, you can identify all these 5 sequences. Sometimes you see that at the beginning, they start from right before crash and burn. So like the person is running and jumps, and then you're like, what happened? And then the screen shows up and it's like 24 hours earlier. And then they go with building character. So that's advanced sequencing, but it's the same sequence, maybe just we call it I mean, it's a loop. It's a big loop that they use as crash and burn. They're using crash and burn as a loop. But anyways, long story short, make sure that you follow the structure of a story. Number 2, be honest and open, and both at the same time. Telling your story is going to hurt. I've been telling my dad's story for 12 years now, maybe 13. And still to this date, when I get to the point that my dad passed away, it hurts. And quite often, I have tears in my eyes as I tell that story. There's just so much also behind that story that I don't tell. That every time that I tell that story, I relive it in my head. They're not the right place to tell that story, because that part of the story, like for example, when my dad passed away, I was the one who did the CPR on him. And I was the one who actually pushed the nurses away from continuing doing CPR to let him die. That part is the part that's outside the meaning of that story when I'm telling it. But every time I tell my dad's story, that's what I relive. And as a leader, it's my responsibility to show up and teach and do the work, even if it hurts. Telling the story that people need to hear, it's incredibly life-changing to them. It's incredibly life-changing to them. And many times, that story is the part that also is life-changing for you to share. And it's impactful. And And the more you tap in, the more you dig in, the more you, the more incredible you become. Let's put it this way. After the extra mile, there is no traffic. Everybody can tell a bullshit story. But how good of a story can you tell that's impactful, that people really need to listen to? And you need to hear, need to listen to. Anyone can talk about good days. Anyone can talk about, but can you talk about the moment that transformed you?
And that's being open and honest.
Be open and honest.
Yeah.
And the third one, work on your story like a real talk. The structure, a talk has a structure, a talk has content, but also a talk has body language, vocal variety, has all of those things as well. And you need to master the body language, the hologram, the vocal variety, the eye contact, the everything, the pacing. Telling a story is like any other part of the talk. You need to master.
Yeah. Three tips, three valuable tips that people need to put into practice. You spoke on the TEDx stage, and I'm going to say here, for people who've not heard Iman's talk, How to Live a Life with No Regrets, go watch it, listen to how he paces and moves through telling his story. It's quite incredible how you start, you weave in, you bring in different parts, you come back to your story. It's one story from start to finish in 15 minutes, but that touches on so many aspects and makes so many points. It's very, very impressive. What was your biggest learning experience speaking on the TEDx stage?
That not every good talk is a TEDx talk. I wrote 13 or 12 scripts that all of them were great talks, but not a TEDx talk, and throw them away. I worked 270 hours on that 15-minute talk. And it's incredible because normally I don't need to work a single minute on a talk before I get on the stage. I literally can be ready at any given moment with any given topic that get on the stage and talk. Yet that talk, even though so real to me and so close to me, I ended up working 270 hours. Wasn't planning to work on it 270 hours. Ended up because I was writing talks. I was reading the talks. I'm like, this is a good talk, but not a TEDx talk. And I was like, what am I missing? Like something is missing. Until after 12 times of writing the script, I was having a conversation with Gobinder Gill. And Gobinder told me, write your talk without your story. And I was like, what? Huh? That doesn't make any sense. The entire talk is the story. And he's like, that's why it doesn't become a TEDx talk. Write your talk without your story. Take your story out. I took the story out and I only had 3 minutes of content. And I was like, oh, I get it. Then I added about 9 more minutes. So I ended up having 12 minutes of content. Then I worked the story back in for only 3 minutes. So even though when you're listening to my talk, it seems that I'm telling you one long story, actually, if you take the story out, the rest of the content is 12 minutes still. So there are 2 stories that I'm telling in that talk. One story is my dad's story, which is 1 minute. And then there's another story which feels like I'm telling the entire talk my story. But actually that other part is only like 3 minutes, 2.5, 3 minutes. But I weave the entire talk around that story, and that's why it seems like a solid story talk, but it's full of content, and it was a huge aha moment for me. Huge aha moment for me.
There is a lot of content in it, and it's really, really wonderfully well crafted. A question for you. I think I heard you say once that you always carry a webcam, a tripod, an iPad, and cell phone with you everywhere you go. Is that true? That you carry
Uh,
a webcam and a tripod? Really?
I used to,
Yeah.
especially back in 2018, 2019, and 20, before COVID. I always did that. I always carried my tripod webcam, and because my ex and I were planning to see every country in the world, and so we were traveling all the time. Like we were traveling about 9 months, 10 months a year, and so we always had our laptop and a webcam and a tripod. Significantly improves your ability to present if you have a webcam and a tripod, as opposed to the built-in camera of your laptop, because it has a cable,
Mhm.
and the cable allows you a lot of flexibility. So yes, I used to, and then now these days I don't travel as often. So I normally, if I travel, I just use the built-in, and I just use my backpack under the built-in camera of my phone, of my laptop. But yeah, I used to.
Oh, Iman, I see time is escaping on us. I've got one more question before we wrap up. I've had lots of questions, but we just don't have time here. So in 2010, you started Success Road Academy, coaching and teaching business owners. Then in 2023, you co-founded Actionera, Action Talks, like a speaking platform for business owners to launch their ideas to the world. Um, what exactly is Actionera? Can you explain it, and how does it help entrepreneurs?
Yeah, just a correction on the timeline. We founded Actionera in 2021.
Ah,
Our product came out in 2023. So just a quick timeline correction. But the technically Actionera is an ecosystem that has platform, education, and credibility and traffic building features. So Actionera as a platform is an all-in-one platform for people who want to have their courses, summits, build funnels, and all different type of things. So it's an all-in-one platform for email marketing, for text messaging, for building funnels and systems, as well as it builds your mobile app. So it's like a true ultimate all-in-one platform. But because we have a lot of clients that are experts, they were asking us, like, how do we create our course? How do we create this? How do we do this? So then we ended up having education for them, which are all like educational classes. And then we wanted to give them a community, so they network with each other and they build relationships and they build their credibility. So we built so we bought JV Insider Circle, which was another one of my companies that I had with another co-founder. So we purchased JV Insider Circle from my business partner, added it to Actionera. And so now Actionera hosts events that gives people opportunity to collaborate with each other. And then in the middle of this, a lot of people were saying, like, we want to have a stage that we want to share a message. So we created something called the Action Talks, which are similar to TEDx style talks. They are a little bit different in terms of structure and focus. And action talks, then people can do action talks, and then we publish their action talks on our Actionera TV app, which is a mobile app called Actionera TV. There's a website for it, and so people can see it all there. So yeah, it just became an entire ecosystem. But the heart of it is a platform, is an all-in-one ultimate platform. The rest of it is the community and providing services to the community.
And it's for entrepreneurs to tell their stories and tell their why.
With action talks, they can tell their story, but but it's also focused on sharing their expertise.
Yes.
So they come share their expertise, share their stories, and how their story impacted their expertise, and so on.
And so if anyone's interested in that, Iman, if somebody is interested in finding out more about Actionera, where do they go? What do they do?
For the platform, the best place is actionera.com. And for I noticed a lot of people want to build courses and they haven't been able to build courses. So we have a course that's actually free, and it's called Action Course Mastery. And it can be found at actioncoursemastery.com. So beside the platform that they can get access to it, but going to actioncoursemastery.com will give them access to a complete course that teaches them how to create and launch their online courses and get sales and all of those type of things.
And all of those things, the sales is what they're looking for, and
Yes,
to make an impact.
yes.
Oh, thank you so much, Iman. There was so much I wanted to talk about your book, The Game Changers, Inspirational Stories That Change Lives, where you've impacted people. There were just, and the ultimate course formula. My goodness, there's so much. Is this material on your website? Do you have sites where people can go, or do they just go on Amazon if they're looking for your books? What can they do to find out more?
Yeah, so they can always go to imanaghay.com, which is my website that has a lot of information, as well as, I mean, if they search my name on Amazon, Ultimate Course Formula comes up, and the other 9 of my books. But yeah, there's just pretty much, I'm everywhere. But imanaghay.com would be a good place to begin.
And it sounds like Iman Aghay is everywhere anyway. Oh, okay. So anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up, Iman?
I just want to thank you for such a great interview. You're amazing. I've known you for many years. I've seen people working with you and getting great results, and I'm very glad that you reached out for this interview. And I was excited for it, and I'm happy with this. And thank you very much for all the amazing work that you are doing.
Oh, thank you so much, Iman. I'm going to say I held my breath when I sent out the email asking for the interview because you are just so incredibly busy. Everybody wants a piece of you, right? Anyway, thank you so very, very much indeed. As I started out earlier in the interview, it's been an honor, a true honor to have you here today. So thank you, Iman, and to everybody out there, wishing you and wishing Iman mountains of success.